This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidoyo. It's Friday, May 17th. This is Africa 54. Medical tourism is impacting Nigeria's healthcare system. We'll explain. The U.S. State Department hosts an Ethiopia Partnership Forum. And in our Music Makers segment, the heart sounds of Afrobeat singer-songwriter Eugene Kwame Marfo. We begin this Friday evening in Northeast Africa, where driving through Sudan's capital city is easier after protesters worked overnight to dismantle and clear roadblocks of bricks and debris that had paralyzed travel in Khartoum. The nation's military leaders demanded that the barriers be removed before talks on a new transitional government could resume. Hundreds of demonstrators waving flags and chanting revolutionary slogans tore down roadblocks on Nile Street, a key avenue that had blocked travel in downtown Khartoum for several days. The ruling military council had suspended negotiations with protest leaders on Wednesday. The council's decision came as army generals and protest leaders were due to meet to finalize the makeup of a new body to govern Sudan for a transitional period of 3 years. In West Africa, the Nigerian medical industry is taking a major financial hit. Officials say the country is losing more than $1 billion annually to medical tourism as tens of thousands of Nigerians travel abroad in search of the best treatment. As Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja, not even the Nigerian president seems to trust the nation's healthcare system.
Former Nigerian lawmaker Ibrahim Bello lost both his parents to diabetes. He feared the disease might run in the family, so he went for a medical exam. Unhappy with the quality of medical care at home, he flew to India like many of Nigeria's well-to-do.
Comparative analysis between Nigerian case and where I passed through in India, honestly, I cannot do it here because the margin is so wide that every Nigerian who has any health issue, his prayer is, how can he be moved to India?
Bello is one of tens of thousands of Nigerians per year who opt to travel abroad for treatment. Health officials and some medical professionals argue that good care is available in the country at private clinics.
I don't see why any Nigerian patient should go outside Nigeria to have a transplant when we can do it for them in Nigeria.
But for those who can't afford private care or medical tourism, there are a few good options. In April 2001, heads of state of African Union countries met and pledged to set a target of allocating at least 15% of their annual budget to improve the health sector. Despite the pledge, Nigeria has not reached that goal. The state medical system is in the bottom ranks of global surveys. To provide better access to high-quality care, authorities plan to build 6 new medical centers across the country.
So these centers of excellence are supposed to deliver those cares, those interventions that people would naturally go outside to seek. Things like cancer treatment, brain tumors, brain surgeries, and fine surgery interventions.
But even President Muhammadu Buhari, with access to the best health care in Nigeria, made several trips in his first term to Britain for medical care. In April, he railed against Nigeria's poor response to public health crisis, outbreaks of deadly disease, and mass migration of doctors. Few Nigerians would disagree and are waiting to see what Buhari will do about it. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
Officials in Mali say flash floods have killed 24 people in Bamako and left thousands homeless after the Niger River burst its banks. Mali's Minister for Internal Security and Civilian Protection says torrential rains triggered the flooding. Floods are a common occurrence in parts of Bamako, a city of 2 million people, during the West African nation's June to October rainy season. Sadly, deaths as a result of the flooding are also fairly common. Some of the worst damage during Wednesday's flooding occurred in areas where houses had been built on land reserved for drainage. In Uganda, allegations of widespread repression and intimidation of opposition legislators and even torture is raising concerns about the direction the country is headed. In 2017, Uganda's Constitutional Court upheld Parliament's 2017 constitutional amendment to remove age limits for presidential candidates, clearing the way for President Yoweri Museveni, who has been in power since 1986, to run in all future elections. According to a 2019 Human Rights Watch report, violations of rights to freedoms of association, expression, and assembly persisted as security forces allegedly abused and at times tortured and detained protesters. Journalists and opposition members of parliament, the Ugandan government has denied these claims. U.S. and Ethiopian investors are meeting here in Washington to explore expanding business opportunities between the two countries. VOA Solomon Abate reports from the State Department.
The Ethiopia Partnerships Forum joins private sector leaders and policymakers from both countries to boost political and economic engagement. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Tibor Naish says Ethiopia's new leaders have put their country at the forefront of African investment opportunities.
Why Ethiopia? Because of the remarkable changes that have taken place in Ethiopia over the last year. Both what Prime Minister Abiy has done in the region and also what the new Ethiopian government is doing within Ethiopia to open political space and also to open economic space for outside investment. And as we all know, Ethiopia's population, like the rest of Africa, is growing dramatically. The continent is full of young people. And what those young people want is the same thing young people in other places want, is jobs, jobs, jobs. So what the governments have to do, if they want to take the continent forward in a positive direction, is to find ways to provide jobs, jobs, jobs. Mm-hmm. Those jobs will not come from development assistance. They're going to come from foreign direct investment.
Nash says it is up to Ethiopia to create conditions to attract that direct investment.
I would like to do anything possible to dynamize the American business sector and direct them towards countries like Ethiopia, because they provide exactly the kind of investment that I think Africa needs. Ethical, technology transfer, and providing lots of very, very, medium and higher paying jobs that Africa needs today.
Nash believes changes underway have ended decades of hostility between Ethiopia and Eritrea.
I don't think that they're going to slide back into conflict. I've had extensive discussions with the leadership on both sides. I certainly did not get a sense, I don't think anyone else has, that there is an intent to go back to conflict. It's in the clear interest of both countries to maintain peace, both for geopolitical reasons, but also for economic reasons. You saw what happened as soon as the two leaders shook hands and they opened the border, and there was a rush on both sides. And the forces of the free market took control. Things that were advantageous for the Eritreans to sell, they came across into Ethiopia and sold them, and vice versa.
The Partnerships Forum discussed investment opportunities in telecommunications, power, and transportation, as well as enterprise-led development in agriculture and financing for small and medium-sized businesses. Solomon Abate, VOA News, at the State Department.
The virtual reality documentary Traveling While Black by Academy Award-winning filmmaker Roger Ross Williams immerses the viewer in what travel was like for Black Americans during the Jim Crow era of the 1950s and 60s, when racial segregation was widespread across much of the U.S. Black motorists and travelers could consult the Green Book, a guide to lodging, restaurants, and bathrooms around the country that catered to African Americans. The film focuses on one of them, Ben Chili's Bowl, a landmark DC diner that provided sanctuary for the African American traveler. The film was part of DC's film festival, VOA's Penelope Pulu spoke with patrons at Ben Chili's Bowl and the producers of the VR documentary.
The Green Book was a guide for African Americans to travel safely, to find shelter, food, and gas in a time when these basic rights were not guaranteed.
In the documentary Traveling While Black, African American patrons at Ben's Chili Bowl reflect on their experiences traveling during the Jim Crow era. One of them is Sandra Butler Truesdale, a native Washingtonian. She relates how blacks had to sit in the back of public buses or the last car of the train and use separate bathrooms, which were rarely available.
The most, I think, difficult thing was the fact that you could not relieve yourself on the train or the bus.
Butler Truesdale remembers coming to Ben's Chili Bowl since she was a girl.
It was a sanctuary. You could meet and talk about politics and talk about legislation and talk about the things that would help as a race.
Traveling While Black executive producer Bonnie Nelson Schwartz says she produced the documentary after staging a theater play on the same topic in Washington 10 years ago. It was called The Green Book. She says audiences reacted viscerally.
And after the play, they began standing up one by one, telling stories about when they traveled in the South during segregation and their families used the Green Book, about not being able to stop anywhere, about being threatened, never having a meal on the trip, always having to pack a picnic lunch and eat by the roadside.
10 years later, her documentary Traveling While Black is receiving international acclaim, which doesn't surprise her.
I think probably immigration is part of that. It's always people who are not of the community moving in. There is a backlash, obviously, in many cities in Europe to immigration. And so there is friction and there is conflict. And what this film hopes to do is begin a conversation.
Sandra Butler Truesdale says the documentary also sparks conversation on race relations in America's streets today.
It's the same thing now with our young black males. We teach them early on how to behave in case they are arrested or in case they are stopped. For the most part, they're trained early on how they should behave.
The virtual reality film immerses the viewer into the intimate discussions black families are having about race while dining at Ben's Chili Bowl, says producer Stéphane Etui.
You forget about the technology, you forget about having a headset on, and you really feel connecting to the place where you are, this new reality.
Traveling While Black deals with the same era as the Academy Award-winning picture Green Book, which was criticized as whitewashing the black traveling experience during the Jim Crow era. Bonnie Nelson Schwartz has a different take.
The Hollywood film is a personal story. I understand there's a lot of anger, that it is not a fair portrait, but it's one man's portrait based on his book. This experience with this film will begin conversations in museums and in communities all over the country.
Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. We'll be right back.
We're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa, around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower, and change the rules. It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior, and Orion Itangi Shaka. It's time for Our Voices.
I am am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
And here's what's trending. If you're a Nigerian male with a beard, chances are you'll be familiar with the concept of male grooming. Men with well-kept facial hair are a growing trend. The global male grooming product market is expected to reach $76 billion by 2023, according to industry research. Manicures, pedicures, skin lotions, fashion. The male styling industry is experiencing a boom as young modern males place increasing emphasis on their appearance. And with Africa's growing youth population, the market is only going to get bigger, giving companies the chance to target millions of new customers. Next up, Prague-based entrepreneur Philip Stahlen set his sights on developing affordable glasses for the 2.5 billion people across the globe who were unable to access eye care. Partnering with the Czech Development Agency, which is a government-funded organization, he came up with Dot Glasses, a low-cost, one-size-fits-all frame, which can easily be assembled by hand. The glasses can be transported and assembled quickly by snapping together each of the 6 parts without the need for any inserts or hinges. The firm says they aim to keep the cost of each pair under $3. Dot glasses are already being shipped to communities in India and Angola. And finally, under a canopy of dogwood trees at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C., a guide invites a group to use their senses to contemplate the nature that surrounds them. Forest bathing is a modern Japanese practice that seeks to improve mind and body health by immersing people in nature. Shinrin-yoku, which translates to taking in the forest, started in Japan in the 1980s, but it's been finding its way into preventative health practices in the U.S. Scientists think antimicrobial chemicals released by trees called phytoncides, which prevent the plants from rotting, might also be responsible for the health benefits detected in humans. And that's what's trending today.
U.S. President Donald Trump has launched his latest immigration plan, which includes stopping the diversity immigrant visa, also known as green card lottery, drastically reducing the number of family-sponsored visas and moving toward a merit-based system. Democrats are rejecting the plan since it does not address the fate of individuals brought into the country illegally as children. Here's VOA's White House correspondent, Patsy Widakuswara.
30% of college-educated workers in science and engineering in the U.S. are foreign-born, according to the National Science Board. President Donald Trump wants more of these highly skilled immigrants.
A new legal immigration system that protects American wages, promotes American values, and attracts the best and brightest from all around the world.
The U.S. grants 1.1 million permanent legal residence visas, also known as green cards, each year. The majority are given to individuals with family ties to U.S. citizens rather than based on skills or employment. Trump wants to cut the number of family-sponsored visas and increase those he calls merit-based. He wants to reduce humanitarian-based visas, such as for asylum seekers and refugees, by half, and stop the diversity visa program, the green card lottery.
Random selection is contrary to American values.
Trump calls the new proposal the Build America visa. It's determined by points including age, English proficiency, education, offer of employment or promise of investment, and passing a test on American history and government. Democrats have rejected Trump's merit-based plan.
Are they saying family is without merit? Are they saying most of the people who have ever come to the United States in the history of our country are without merit because they don't have an engineering degree?
Also because it does not address DACA recipients, the 700,000 dreamers, individuals who were brought to the U.S. illegally as children, and the millions of undocumented immigrants already here.
This is not something that has any path to becoming a law, and he kind of intimated that at the end of his speech when he said, you know, if this isn't enacted by Congress, then we'll enact it once we regain the presidency and the House. I think we already saw 2 years with this president and unified Republican Congress, and he still didn't get anything done on immigration. So I don't think that this proposal has any chance.
Nor does it address the shortage of workers for jobs that are not highly skilled.
The industries that are complaining about worker shortages are specifically looking for immigrants, whether it's construction or agriculture or meatpacking. There is a lot of demand in those particular areas, and a high-skilled immigration system, although important, wouldn't address our other needs, which is on the lower skill level.
Trump also still insists on a border wall and wants to create a trust fund from border crossing fees to help pay for it. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
The real estate empire of U.S. President Donald Trump generated millions of dollars in revenue last year, reinforcing questions over the president's businesses profiting from foreign and state government officials. The Office of Government Ethics released a statement that the luxury Trump International Hotel here in Washington, D.C. raked in nearly $41 million last year, just a bit higher than the previous year. The disclosure, required of all senior government officials, offers a snapshot of Trump's debts, assets, and income in broad ranges across hundreds of businesses he owns. The disclosure showed the income at Mar-a-Lago Trump's winter White House in Palm Beach, Florida, fell $2.5 million to $22.7 million. Since taking office, Trump has faced persistent criticism over his refusal to divest his assets, and decision critics say has created conflicts between his business and political interests. Overall, Trump reported income of at least $434 million for 2018, a decline from at least $450 million reported for 2017. And it's Music Makers Friday, and joining me is Africa 54 Music Makers host Heather Maxwell with some exciting music. Heather, take it away.
Thanks, Esther. On Music Time in Africa this week, my featured song of the week looks ahead to this weekend's annual Ghana Music Awards. VOA's Kwame Ofori joined me in the studio. Let's watch.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Heather Maxwell.
And this is Mr. Asante here for you.
Now and always.
Of course.
So this week, our song of the week is by a Ghanaian artist.
Yay, my people.
Yes, and it's by an artist named Kwame Eugene. Now, the name of the song is Wish Me Well, and it's actually very special because this coming Sunday, I believe, is Ghana's Ghana Music Awards, and this song is nominated for Best Song of the Year.
And Highlight Song of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
And
we're
to me,
wondering.
That's weird,
yeah,
because that's actually a gospel song,
yeah,
if you ask me.
It doesn't sound high life, but it sounds amazing, and we are going to
And that's Music Makers Friday. Now back to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Heather. We'll see you next week, Friday. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, good night.